Stories like this are why people say your co-workers are not your friends. So be careful who you trust from work. Around the 4th and 5th of May 2024, this 45-year-old man by the name of Adamu Bello got a phone call from someone telling him that he had finally gotten the job he had been looking for. Adamu gave thanks to God, asked his wife to get his car keys, and then zoomed off, thinking he was going to meet the job of his life, not knowing he was going to meet the end of his life. And this was the last time his family saw him alive. Bello Adamu was already a staff of the Kano Electric Distribution Company, and while he was there, he became friends with another co-worker named Sadik Zubairu. Sadik was a younger man, 10 years younger than him. However, for some weird reasons, since they were co-workers, they became friends. So while they were both working at Kedco, along the line, Sadik got fired from his job. It's unclear why he got fired, but I guess they saw something odd in him. And at the same time, Adamu Bello got promoted to a higher office. And while he was in his new position, Adamu began finding a way to see if he could get Sadik back to Kedco. But apparently, he maybe couldn't get Sadik back to work fully at Kedco. And eventually, it is possible that Sadik then called to inform him that he had found another job at the Federal Inland Revenue Service. And that was when Sadik thought of a brilliant idea. Since he was still talking with Adamu Bello, he told Adamu Bello that he could help him get a job in the Federal Inland Revenue Services too, a higher position. Saying that Adamu was more qualified, Sadik assured him that if he could get the job, he will be at a higher office in the Federal Inland Revenue Services. And Adamu was excited because this was a job he had been trying to get. This was a job he wanted. For some obvious reason, this was Adamu's dream job. He wanted to work for the FIRS. Personally, I feel like this was just a tactic by Sadik because since Sadik and Bello Adamu were already friends, I'm sure while they were working at the electric distribution company, Adamu must have mentioned a number of times how he wanted a job at the Federal Inland Revenue Services. So, after Sadik got fired from the electric distribution company, him claiming to have gotten unemployment in the FIRS was just a tactic to do what he was about to do next. He then requested the sum of 3 million naira, citing that that is the only way he could get the job, that he will use the money to bribe his way into giving him a slot at the Federal Inland Revenue. You know, a lot of these employment situations are usually based on connection, and for some, it's based on how much he could pay. And I think Bello understood that that was what was needed for him to do to be able to get a job at the FIRS. And so he called out 3 million naira from his account, sent it to Sadik, hoping that Sadik could eventually get him that job. However, days passed, weeks passed, months passed, and Sadik could not provide Adamu the job. And Adamu got frustrated, realizing that, okay, this was not going to work, began calling Sadik subsequently to request the money back or give him the job. And that became a thing of dilemma for Sadik, who had already collected the money but could not provide the job. And since time has gone, he also could not provide the money. Because honestly speaking, I guess Sadik knew that he was not going to get Adamu the job. He just needed money. Since he was out of work, he needed something to get by. And that was his method to scam this man of 3 million naira by using his dream job to lure him. But Adamu was not willing to let his money go like that. He kept pestering Sadik. And Sadik, realizing how constant Adamu Bello was, decided to come up with a new plan. Since he could not provide the job, and since he could no longer provide the 3 million naira, his next course of action was to get rid of the threat. And so, on the 5th of May 2024, on a Sunday afternoon, Adamu Bello got a phone call from Sadik, telling him that he had finally succeeded in getting the position for him at the FIRS, urging him to come to his house so they could sign the appropriate documents and he could meet the other people who would guide him into his first day of work. Adamu Bello was excited. He was grateful. One of his last words before he left the house was him giving thanks to Allah. He was excited. He believed Sadik had gotten him the job finally. He quickly asked his wife to rush to get his car keys and he zoomed off to Sadik's house. And when he got to Sadik's house thinking he was there to sign some documents and get more details on his new job, he was ambushed by 2 men who held him down, tied him up, and began beating him up. Adamu Bello was beaten with sticks, stones, and weapons until he lost his life. He was simply beaten to death in the home of his friend, Sadik. After Adamu Bello had died, Sadik took his car keys, shoved them into the boot, and drove him to another village where he dumped his body. Now, he doesn't have to worry about paying the 3 million naira. He does not also have to worry about finding this man a job. And upon that, he got a new car. But all this would not last long, because when Adamu Bello did not return home, his family swung into action. The police was immediately involved, and they told the police everything they knew, that he got a call from somebody and they knew that he was trying to get a job at the FIRS, but they weren't so sure who was the one promising to give him the job. His last phone call was quickly traced, and just as easy as it got, the call was traced directly to Sadik. However, though, by this time, Adamu Bello's body had already been seen where they had dumped it, and the police already knew that he was dead. And while confronting Sadik, they saw him with the vehicle that belonged to Adamu Bello. He didn't even try to sell it, because most criminals would have sold it to someone else, but he was still in possession of the vehicle. This was already the day after he had killed him, so maybe he hadn't seen a buyer, or maybe he was planning on selling it. Maybe he thought since Adamu Bello's body was still far off, it would buy him time to sell the car. But just as quickly as he was able to kill Adamu Bello, he was quickly traced, caught, and arrested. And immediately he confessed. He did not even try to deny it. He explained the story on how, because he couldn't provide the money and because he couldn't provide the job, he had to kill him. Adamu's family was later called to Kano Teaching Hospital to identify his body where it had been brought, and they were able to identify him. When Sadik was paraded, he gave his own side of the story and eventually told them that he threw the phone away or maybe sold the phone. Also led them to the garage where he kept the vehicle that belonged to Adamu Bello. The next day, on the 7th of May, Adamu Bello was laid to rest. The story is so sad that a lot of people cannot believe that this young man, Sadik, could do such a thing, because he was said to be a known Twitter influencer. He was always tweeting about politics. He had so much opinion about politics. His Twitter page was his own political views a lot, so people call him a political influencer. Even after killing this man, he continued tweeting on his Twitter like nothing had happened. Some people even believe that the reason why he called Adamu Bello over was to steal his vehicle. My own thing was, I was just surprised as to why Adamu Bello could be so trusting of Sadik. I don't get it. He was 10 years younger. They weren't exactly best of friends, but they knew each other from work. He was his junior colleague, and he got fired from their workplace. Personally, for me, I would have loved to know why he got fired. Every single place I have worked and somebody got fired, I always am curious as to know why they got fired. And I'm sure if it's looked into, Sadik was most likely fired for fraudulent activities. He was most likely fired for something corny that he did. And I think if Adamu Bello had caught on that, he would have known what kind of a person this young man was. It was full of tricks. He's a politician in the making. He will most likely know how to lie, come up with excuses, and come up with fraudulent ways to defraud people. And I guess since he was aware that Adamu Bello has always wanted a job at the FIRS, he used that against him, claimed he got a job and promised to get him a job if only he would pay 3 million. And that seemed to have worked. Thinking maybe Adamu Bello would forget about it since he still has a job. But when Adamu Bello kept pestering him, he came up with a master plan to kill him. It's just unfortunate, and this is why most times people are like, your co-workers are not your friend. Just because you guys see each other every day at work doesn't mean you guys are friends. Doesn't mean they have your best interest at heart. A lot of these people, a lot of your co-workers, a lot of your work colleagues are jealous of you. Many of them are the ones snitching to their boss behind your back. We've heard so many stories of colleagues bringing food for their co-workers and poisoning them to death just so they could take their position. It's a jungle out there in the corporate world. In the labor market, it's a jungle. So hopefully this is a reminder that not all your co-workers are your friends. So be watchful and be mindful of who you trust from work, or who you trust at all. Because if we are being serious, Sadik could have been anybody. We've seen family members do worse to family members. We've seen brothers done worse to brothers. So thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. You can also turn on your notification button so that whenever there is a new video, you'll be the first to get notified. Also, if you're a content creator and you're trying to learn how to grow on YouTube and other platforms, We have created a new channel where we share tips, ideas, and answer questions relating to growing as a content creator. So make sure you follow us on our new channel, Grow with Daniel. Catch us live or catch one of our videos on tips to help you grow and succeed as a content creator.